Congressman Stephen Lynch is with us live this morning. Let's go on the record. An eyewitness to the chaos in the Capitol building, the former iron worker is taking an iron stand on President Trump's responsibility. His calls for the president's removal, his hopes for change with a new administration. Let's go on the record.
From WCVB Channel 5, the inside word from Washington to Beacon Hill. Today's newsmakers are going on the record.
Welcome to OTR on this Sunday morning. I'm Ed Harding, along with News Center 5's political reporter Janet Woods. Great to have you with us. These extraordinary times in American politics continue, and so does the pandemic, which is why we do continue to respect social distancing protocols here in Studio C. You can see we're well distanced between the three of us here. Live at the center desk this morning is Congressman Stephen Lynch. The Democrat from South Boston is also the chairman of the House Oversight Subcommittee on National Security. Congressman, it's always great to see you. Happy New Year. Thanks for being with us this morning.
You too, Ed, and thank you, Janet. Thanks for having me.
Well, we appreciate you coming in on a Sunday morning. Impeachment is right now front and center. What is the House Speaker telling you, the Democrats, as well as the other members of the House, about what's going to get done? Is it going to get done this week?
Well, the schedule right now is to introduce the impeachment resolution on Monday, tomorrow, and then be ready for a vote on Wednesday. So that's the schedule right now. It's subject to change, but I think it'll hold firm.
A vote on Wednesday, did you say?
Yeah, a vote on Wednesday.
But what about a conviction in the Senate? Is that near impossible before Trump leaves office in light of the schedule that McConnell has put out? So why even bother at this point?
Well, what the Senate does is obviously up to them. It's 50-50 right now, but with Vice President Pence still in office and the sort of the deciding vote, the Republicans still have control. So until January 20th. But look, you know, for us to impeach, I think, is the right thing to do. And I don't think there's ever a wrong time to do the right thing. And this is the right thing to do. You would think that the Senate, after having had the president direct a mob attack against the Capitol, against the House and Senate, putting them all in peril, that they would be receptive to at least debating and discussing the merits of impeachment against this president. But at least right now, today, Mitch McConnell is saying that it doesn't really work with the Senate calendar. And, well, it didn't work with our calendar either, to be honest with you. But under these emergency conditions, and because democracy has been and is being threatened, we think it's important for history's purpose, right? We want to know who the people are that stand up and defend the republic, and we want to know who the Quislings are. Let's get on the record.
What about the 25th Amendment or something like that? I mean,
I support the application of the 25th Amendment. The problem is that requires the cooperation of the Vice President Pence. He either has to initiate it or he has to support it. And right now, he's been reluctant to do that. He's even been reluctant in terms of communicating with House leadership and Senate leadership on that measure. So, it would be great if that were the case. That's one avenue, but it's closed off right now because of the lack of cooperation on the part of the Vice President.
How important is the argument that the Senate could bar him from running for office ever again? How key is that to the argument for the Democrats, especially in the House?
Well, it's important. It's important, right? This president supported an insurrection against the elected government. He forcefully used force against the House and Senate, against the legislative branch, to stop them from performing their constitutional duty in counting and certifying the electoral college results. So that warrants forceful action on the part of all Americans who support the Constitution.
Congressman,
and so that would be a great result if this president were prevented from being on the ballot again. There are other measures, I think, seditious conspiracy is also out there. But that can be pursued after the president leaves office.
I know it was a couple of days ago, but where were you when all of it started to unravel on Wednesday? And walk us through that, because as the days go on, sir, we're hearing more horror stories. It was more scary than as time has gone on.
You know, ironically, I was in the Capitol in the morning with one of your relentless reporters remotely. I was in the Capitol, but Sharman Sacchetti actually, we did an interview, and right then in the morning we began to hear stories about a breach at the Cannon Building. There were reports of suspected devices, and we found out later on they were pipe bombs. But when it really hit the fan, it was after President, and I was walking through the crowd back and forth between buildings and also from my apartment, which is only about a block and a half away. But when President Trump gave his remarks and ordered, the mob up to the Capitol, that's when things changed. And I was actually at the Russell Building at that point, and had to retreat to my apartment with the support of the Capitol Police, who put a detail out there. But a horrific chain of events that resulted in 5 deaths and a complete disgrace in terms of what happened to our democracy at the direction of this president.
So the next question is obviously, how fearful are you that another major riot will take place on Inauguration Day?
So there is a lot of action on Twitter and on social media about another attack on the Capitol to prevent President Biden and Kamala Harris from becoming president and vice president. I trust that there'll be much better preparation and much better leadership in terms of resisting that attack, but we'll just have to wait and see. I know we're taking extra precautions. The fences are going up. They're 20-foot fences. They're, but it's a shame. It is a shame that, think about that. We've got to take extraordinary measures to protect our safety and the safety of the Capitol from violent mobs. It's not how it should be. I spent a lot of time in countries where this is the norm. Iraq, Afghanistan, Yemen, Somalia, and the problem is there that the losing candidate always says it was fraud. Always says it was fraud, and it undermines the democracy. It undermines the government, and it feeds this chaos within those countries, and it works to the detriment of the people in that country. I've never seen it happen here until now, and it's a disgrace.
Let's talk about the immediate future. Can Democrats stop the president from pardoning himself?
That's an open question, and it hasn't been answered yet. So we'll just have to wait and see. But he has said that he intends to pardon all his kids and from any transgressions, and himself as well. There are first of all, he wouldn't be able to pardon himself for impeachable offenses, and he wouldn't be able to pardon himself from the charges that the district attorney in Southern District of New York is bringing against him already. So there's still some exposure for the president.
The secondary ripple to that is Vice President Mike Pence. Should President Trump resign, Mike Pence will be president for that period of time, and then he could issue the pardon too. So could someone stand in the way of that?
Yeah. Well, in my estimation, Vice President Pence is less dangerous than President Trump. So I'll just leave it at that.
The question that's being asked repeatedly about the riots is, if those rioters were people of color, would there have been more security at the ready? Would they have gotten their National Guard gotten there sooner? Would they have ever made it even one step into the Capitol?
Well, I was there during the Black Lives Matter protests in D.C., and the profile for defending the Capitol and policing the crowds was much more vigorous and much more robust. There was a larger military and National Guard presence. There was a more forceful presence among the Capitol Police. So it was a much different response that we had to this crowd than we had with respect to the Black Lives Matter. I tend to think it would have been a much more violent response by law enforcement against people of color. Just the feeling was there.
They would have never made it to the Capitol steps. Is that what you're saying?
Well, who knows? That's mere speculation. That's mere speculation. But I do think that the barriers would have been more robust, and the defense of the Capitol would have been more robust. I think they would have paid greater attention to the circumstances.